Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bullshit in order to be comfortable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Welcome back, everyone. It's south of the border. I'm your reluctant gringo back again. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? It's Tuesday. Oh, man. And if I look worse for wear, if I look a little haggard, a little worn out, a little beat up, yeah, I survived. I survived Cinco de Mayo weekend in Mexico. And I'm getting old. I'm getting old. That's definitely what's... I'm getting old. But, yeah, so today... Now, give me a second, actually. Oh, let me go do something here because we got a special guest with us today. Hold on. There we go. There we go. So, if you hear some breathing, if you hear some... odd noises that you're probably not used to hearing on this show, that would be the old man Caesar, because he's hanging out with me. That's my puppy, my doggy. Yeah, I call him my puppy, but he's my old man. He's an old man. He's cranky all the time, needy. But he's hanging out in here, so if you hear him snoring or hear him breathing, that's just him. That's just him. So, but yeah, so we got a lot to talk about. We got it's an entertaining day. It's an entertaining day. It's always an entertaining day when the President of the United States decides that he's going to get in front of the media, especially in the Oval Office, surrounded by other dignitaries, the Vice President, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the newly elected Prime Minister of Canada, I believe. So I don't know if they've actually sworn him in yet or not. I think they have. I think he's been sworn in. But yes, you know, it is what it is. We're going to watch the thing. It lasted about 30 minutes. We're going to watch it and have some fun and some laughs because, again, you never know what's going to come out of the president's mouth, and you never know what kind of news he's going to make. And to be honest, one of the most entertaining things is watching the other people in the room when they do have the camera on their faces when the president is speaking and their facial expressions. Listen, people from Canada, I've been to Canada a few times. They're really nice people. They're really polite. They're they're not used to what this guy is going to walk into in the Oval Office. It's almost not fair to this poor guy. Like I think he's like most world leaders. He's walking in thinking, I can handle this. I can do this. And then he runs and then he actually meets President Trump, and President Trump just owns the room. He owns, if there's a camera on, he owns it. But we're going to watch it and see what happened when Canada met the United States again. But first, we have breaking news. So this just actually rolled out. So let me bring this up. President Trump gets a win here. The U.S. Supreme Court lets President Trump's transgender military ban take effect. Listen, there's not a lot of leeway. I mean, he's the commander-in-chief. And it takes an act of Congress to change the military code of standard or the military uniform code or whatever you want to call it. It takes an act of Congress. So in the regards of what happens with the military and the different regulations and things, that's all him. I mean, he really has that power. He's the president. He's the commander-in-chief. So this really isn't surprising. It was a 6-3 decision. The three liberal justices being very public in their denouncement of this. Now, this article is from Reuters, and I don't think it's really as well. There's some things in it that I do question. It does say that because of this ban, because of this transgender ban, that we're going to lose thousands and thousands of military personnel. I don't think there's thousands and thousands of transgender individuals serving in the military. I could be wrong. I could be seriously wrong. I don't think it's that big of a number. Again, this is just part of the culture war that we've been in the middle of, and this is just this is Trump. I mean, this is going to be a win. I mean, the commander-in-chief says he wants something done with the military, it's got to happen, right? So just real quick, let's run through this. The U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday permitted Donald Trump's administration to implement his ban on transgender personnel in the military, one of a series of directives by the Republican president to curb transgender rights. And again, that's all debatable. I don't know if it's, you know, is it your right to serve in the military, or, you know, I don't know. I don't look at it that way. The military wants certain standards, certain people, certain things, and whether you agree with those standards and those guidelines, that's another issue. But those are the guys. It's like saying, I want to work at Apple. Do you know anything about technology and iPhones? No. Okay. Well, what are you going to do at Apple? Nothing. Okay. It's just this the way it works, right? They have their standards. In a decision that could trigger the discharge of thousands of current personnel. Again, I don't think it's going to trigger the discharge of thousands of personnel, because I don't think our military has thousands of transgender individuals serving in it. I really don't. Again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe the military, you know, decided to go and recruit that certain segment of the population, which is really not that great. I mean, when you think about it, the segment of the population that is considered transgender, it's not a huge percentage, right? I mean, did all of them sign up for military duty? I mean, God bless you if you did. Okay, cool. You know, yeah. Thank you for serving. That's not the case here. It's not that's not what we're talking about here. So the court's brief order was unsigned, which is typical in emergency orders. This was an emergency order. This wasn't an official case. This is just a court getting together going, if we heard this case, what would it really be? And the 9 justices getting together. Again, the 3 liberal justices, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, publicly dissented from the decision. This was to rebuke a Seattle-based U.S. district judge that found Trump's order likely violates the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment right to equal protection under the law. Yeah, the Constitution is a thing. I get it. But when you're in the military, there's some different guidelines and rules there too. Sometimes the constitutional rights aren't exactly front and center because it is the military and it's a different type of institution. Now, this is where it kind of gets a little weird. Trump's directive cast the gender identity of transgender people as a lie and asserted that they are unable to satisfy the standards needed for service in the American Armed Forces. And this is his reason. This is Trump's reasoning. Again, agree with it, disagree with it. A man's assertion that he is a woman and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member. That's what Trump's executive order, his directive, stated. And so that's where we find ourselves. So the Supreme Court has ruled. That's what it is. There's nowhere else to go from here. That is now the law of the land, the guidelines, the rules. So it does go on. The article goes on to really kind of recapture and revisit the whole culture war with transgender rights or transgender individuals. And we're not going to go through it, but I just thought this is breaking news. So this is, and this is, if this is a litmus test for how some of these cases are going to go, then I have a feeling President Trump is going to start winning some more and more cases at the Supreme Court as these things come up. Now, he's got a lot, probably around 200 different cases that are going to end up at the Supreme Court. Supreme Court's going to be extremely, extremely busy. I don't think they're going to hear every one of them. A lot of them will be just decided by these emergency orders where again, the 9 kind of get together and kind of sit in a chamber, tell us what they think and vote, and then send out an unsigned order saying this is what it is. And that's the way it is. So like it, don't like it. This is the law now. This is the rule. So if you want to be in the U.S. military and you are transgender, you're no longer wanted. So take that for what it's worth. Personally, if we're in a war, I don't care what you believe. And as long as you can shoot straight and, willing to put your life on the line the same as anyone else. Personally, that's my thing. Again, these are these little culture war things that keep us from worrying about the real stuff that's out there, I think. Stuff that's really going to harm us. But again, just my opinion. Now, I'm going to try this. I got my headphones on. So I'm going to try this, and hopefully it's not too loud. I don't want anybody's eardrums to blow out. But we're going to start. This is from the White House website, their official. Now, what I love about this stuff is whenever you go to the White House, it's not copyright protected. This is public domain immediately, so that's why I love being able to watch this. Now, again, it appears that this goes on. So that is the new Prime Minister of Canada. There he is, looking at Trump, going. I mean, just the look on his face is just right there. It's like, what am I in for? What is this? And then you got all the reporters there screaming and yelling, and this is gonna be interesting. So, is that the new Prime Minister, or is that the new governor of the 51st state? We'll find out. Let's find out. Let us find out.
Election in Canada, and I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning, so I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. But I want to just congratulate you. That was a great election, actually. We were watching it with interest, and I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person. We spoke
that's nice.
Before the election.
That's nice.
A few times. And
Okay,
it's
cordial.
an honor to have you at the White House and the Oval Office.
We're cordial.
You see the new and improved Oval Office as it becomes more and more beautiful with love. We handle it with great love. And 24-karat gold, that always helps too. Right?
There is a lot of gold in that place, isn't there?
It's been a lot of fun. We're going over some of the beautiful pictures that were stored in the vaults that were for many, many years, in some cases over 100 years. They were stored in vaults of the great presidents, or almost great presidents, all having a reason for being up, every one of them. So it's very interesting. But I just want to congratulate you, and ran a really great race. I watched the debate. I thought you were excellent, and I think we have a lot of things in common. We have some tough points to go over, and that'll be fine. We're going to also be discussing Ukraine, Russia.
Okay, sounds presidential, right? This is okay.
Quickly as I do.
There's no craziness.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not.
Oh yes,
they
yes, the
announced
Houthis.
To us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight.
Okay, so those of you who don't know who the Houthis are the rebel group in Yemen. Yemen's one of the poorest countries in all of the world, right? Of course, they've been backed by Iran. Now, these are just poor people that have nothing but dirt hills. I mean, they have nothing. So when Iran comes around and goes, we'll give you these weapons and some money, you blow up these ships so, we can disrupt shipping. And, of course, the Houthis are also the enemy of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was fighting them for a long, long time. So anyways, so we got tired of them blowing up our ships or stopping our shipping, so we bombed them about 800 times since March. And finally they said, you know what? We're done fighting. We're going to stop blowing up your ships. So when the United States military bombs you 800 times, you usually get the message. So the Houthis have agreed to say, hey, we're not going to interrupt shipping anymore. We're not going to do that. So please stop bombing us. And that's cool. That's great. No war, nobody dying. Great. Especially because in Yemen, it's one of the poorest countries in all the world, like I said. So any devastation, I mean, it's really is incredibly horrible if you've seen documentaries on this place. Now, Israel blew up the Yemeni airport yesterday, also in retaliation for some of the things. So that devastated. I mean, that's just, the country is just a hole in the ground at this point. So will Iran continue to back them financially with weapons and things like that and try to make them a proxy terrorist group? We'll have to see. But it's good that little pocket of hate that's been going on and war that's been going on for 10 years, by the way, is starting to subside. Hopefully we can get Yemen some help, because it's a terrible place. If you live in Yemen, you live in hell.
And we will honor that, and we will stop the bombings, and they have capitulated, but more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore, and that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just the canal. It was a lot of other places. and I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis, effective immediately. And Marco, you'll let everybody know that. Okay? Do you have something to say about that, by the way? It's a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, this was always a freedom of navigation issue. These guys, these are a band of individuals with advanced weaponry that were threatening global shipping, and the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. And I think it's an important development.
Trump's got his two bulldogs there, Rubio and Vance. By the way, that sound you hear, that's not me. That's actually the White House press corps making noise.
In Qatar, and that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what.
So they got some sort of big announcement coming Friday. They're going to be in the Middle East. He's going to Qatar and I think Jordan, maybe a couple of other places that are surprised. We're not sure what that announcement is. Is it economic? Is it got to do with the war in Israel, Gaza, all that? We're not sure. So he's teasing it. Listen, the man knows show business. Like him as a president or not, the man knows how to build show business, suspense, tension, all that. So Friday will be interesting to see exactly what it is. I'm sure something will leak out sooner rather than later. So it'll be fun to see what that is. Hopefully it's an end to the war in Gaza. Hopefully it's an end to that conflict. Maybe it's a deal with Iran. We don't know. Now they've been working back channels. We know there's been a lot of back channel work going on with Iran, with their nuclear program and things like that. Nobody knows right now, but we'll hopefully find out sooner rather than later. But here we go.
But it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you if it was negative or positive, I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave.
Oh, okay.
But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject. Very important subject. So you'll all be here.
It's got to deal with Gaza or Iran. It's got to be Gaza or Iran.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh, here he is.
But thank you for
welcome to the show, buddy. Welcome to the show.
For your leadership. You're a transformational president.
Ooh, a transformational president.
American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here. I'm going to spread the credit to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl, much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic, and the history of
securing and developing the Arctic. I know there's minerals there, or maybe there is. Not actually with the Arctic. It's just ice and snow. Can we just leave it alone? Leave the polar bears alone. I don't know. I don't know if I like that. I mean, we drilling up there? I mean, I know we get plenty of oil everywhere, but I don't know. Leave the Arctic alone. You start screwing around with the poles, bad things happen. But then again, we'll see what that means. Securing the Arctic. Are we getting invaded? Is Russia sneaking onto the Arctic?
Canada and the
They've
US
done that before.
We're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together. And I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have.
Seems like a reasonable dude.
In those areas of mutual cooperation, so we can go forward.
Hit him with the 51st state.
Thank you very much. It's a very nice statement.
Mr. President,
Anybody?
Oh, here we go. Here comes the press.
is USMCA dead?
No, it was actually very effective, and it's still very effective, but people have to follow it. So, that's been a problem. People haven't followed it. But it was a transitional step a little bit, and as you know, it terminates fairly shortly. It gets renegotiated very shortly. But I thought it was a very positive step from NAFTA. NAFTA was the worst trade deal.
Yeah, NAFTA sucked. I'll be honest. The USMCA is much better than NAFTA. I'll agree with that.
This was a
Who's not going with
deal,
USMCA? I don't know. I would think he's probably talking about the neighbor that I'm living in right now, Mexico.
Negotiate that if it's even necessary. I don't know that it's necessary anymore, but it served a very good purpose. And the biggest purpose it served is we got rid of NAFTA. NAFTA was a very unfair deal for the United States. A very, very terrible deal. It should have never been made. It was made many years ago, but it should have never been made.
Canada and the United States. Would you like to see your first trade deal be with Canada, our neighbors in the world?
I would love that. Look, I have a lot of respect for this man. and I watched him come up, in a sense, through the ranks when he wasn't given much of a chance, and he ran a really great campaign. He did a really great debate. I think that debate was very helpful. I was going to raise my hand. You know, I don't know if that's good or bad. I shouldn't say that. That might hurt you. But no, he ran a really great election, I thought. And yeah, something could happen. Something could happen. Yeah, please.
What's the top concession you want out of Canada? The top concession you want out of Canada?
Concession?
Yes.
Friendship.
Aw, isn't that nice? Top thing he wants out of Canada is friendship.
Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. And no, I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky, I mean, how good, the great one. You happen to have a very, very good hockey player right here on the Capitals, who I have a lot of. He is a big, tough cookie too. Just broke the record, and he's a great guy. And you know, we had the team here, and I got to know.
Where are we going with all this?
But,
We're talking hockey now.
Canada is a very special place.
Okay, back to Canada.
Mr. President, and Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to get your response to this too. But Mr. President, you have said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Oh, there it is, 51st state, baby.
Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical care.
Hopefully that's not too loud. I just want to make sure you guys can hear
There would be
it.
a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beautiful, that's the way it was meant to be. But you know,
he's there painting.
I do feel it.
Doing some oil
much
painting.
better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military.
Look, he's just holding it in.
Anyway,
he's holding it in. Here it comes.
We haven't had a problem, but I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can.
What a very political, nice.
And
Okay, guys. All right.
Just said,
all right, he's holding in there.
with respect to our own security.
This isn't going to be a Zelensky shit
My
show.
government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the President has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
They have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military.
I love how Vance is just sit back, relax, just waiting.
Mark knew, you know, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
What would it take to get the tariffs off of Canada?
Well, we'll be talking about different things. Like, you know, we want to protect our automobile business, and so does Mark. But we want to make the automobiles, and we want to, you know, we have a tremendous abundance of energy, more than any country. We have, just in Alaska alone, Anwar's been reopened now. Anwar's probably the largest find anywhere in the world. They say it's larger than Saudi Arabia. I don't know, but it's a lot. But we have
it's a lot of oil up there. There's a lot of oil
Other
up there.
countries don't. We're both lucky in that way. They have energy. We have energy. We have more than we can ever use and more than we could ever sell, actually. And you have the same thing. So we're two countries that are very lucky. If you look at China, they don't have that. You know, it's a big disadvantage. Other countries, most countries don't have. You know, most countries don't have that. So Canada and us, we have a lot of a lot of advantages over.
Okay, so far this seems like a very cordial meeting, right? Not what you'd expect.
When you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada's not for sale, does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
The press just wants to talk about the 51st state. They want the conflict. They want the shit show that they had with Zelensky. They want that. They want that. I mean, it's ratings. What do you want?
They ended up being doable, and only doable in a very friendly way. But if it's to everybody's benefit, you know, Canada loves us and we love Canada. That's, I think, the number one thing that's important. But we'll see. I mean, over time, we'll see what happens. China.
I was hoping you can clarify something. Earlier this morning on Capitol Hill, Secretary Besson said that there had been no negotiations yet with China. You have said something different.
They want to meet, and they're doing no business right now. And those ships are turning around in the Pacific Ocean. Big turn. Those are big ships. Those ships take about 10 miles to turn. And, you know, we lost $1 trillion to China on trade because of an incompetent president that we had who preceded me, grossly incompetent. You're finding it out more and more now. And by not
he can't
trading,
help himself.
we're losing nothing. So we're saving $1 trillion. It's a lot. But they want to negotiate and they want to have a meeting, and we'll be meeting with them at the right time.
But you haven't met with them yet.
I have not met with them. Of course, you would know if I met.
You've not met. You would know if the president of China and the president of the United States had met.
Right now,
like you would know this.
Look, they're suffering greatly. Their economy is suffering greatly because they're not doing trade with the U.S. and they made most of their money off the U.S. Don't kid yourself. They don't make the money off other countries like this. And
this is partially true, okay, folks? What he's saying is partially true. But also now you're seeing a lot of companies like Apple move their manufacturing out. Let me just pause it. You're seeing a lot of companies like Apple moving their manufacturing out to India, things like that, right? You're seeing a lot of companies leave China, not just because of the tariffs, but because, you know, you got copyright infringements. Literally, I'm going to probably be out later this week at some of the malls here. Just taking my wife around and whatnot. There's a bunch of Chinese stores. Now, I was just one the other day. It's just pure copies of Apple, pure copies of Samsung, pure copies, just absolute ripoffs. I mean, they look cheap, they look nice, but they're Chinese made, and but that's how they make their money is copyright infringement, not caring about that kind of stuff. So, and even so, like, you know, I was reading an article the other day where people who sell online, you know, like eBay, Etsy, things like that, right? They'll have this handmade stuff, right? They'll have handmade goods and they'll sell it online. And then they'll sell it to somebody in China will buy it. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh, my pictures from my website have been taken and they've copied my product and they're mass producing it. And literally it's anything they can copyright infringe, they do. So that's how they make a lot of the money. So what he's saying is true. What kind of deal we'll get with China, I don't know. Honestly, at some point in time, if we could just cut them out and be like, okay, we got India, Vietnam, we got all the other countries. We got countries in Central and South America that could do the manufacturing as well at the same type of cost. I just think with the security risks and things like that, I think he's right. You know, the more we cut China out, the better. I mean, right now we get most of our pharmaceuticals from China. In the United States, it's just we need a manufacturing base, and whether that's in the United States or somewhere else that we can trust and be sort of have a little bit more control over, a little bit more trust with, I think that's better. So, is he going to meet with China? He'll meet with China when I think right now he's going to meet with them. It's going to be another month and a half before he meets with them.
And because of 145%, that's the only reason. But because of they have now 145% tariff. There's no trading. You can't trade with 145%.
It's crazy. We're going to take a look at those later, too.
Therefore, making, in a certain way, I guess, $1.1 trillion. In other words, we're not losing $1.1 trillion.
So his point is there, right? If we trade with China, we have a deficit of $1.1 trillion. If we don't trade with China, well, we don't have that deficit. So it's like it's a positive gain, or at least wiping it out. So that's his thinking. That's his theory. Again, I've talked about tariffs and things like that here. China's all over Mexico. China's just trying to use Mexico as a springboard to get into the United States manufacturing-wise, and he has blocked the cars. Again, that's another thing. When I go car shopping, I'll show you the Chinese cars. They're well-made, beautiful, and they would destroy the automotive industry in the United States. They really would, because of just the cost of them. And they are nice. They are nice, and they're doing very well down here. So So he is right. So there's a lot of protectionism there, but it's a necessary protectionism. So I will give him that. There's a lot of things I disagree with him on the economy and some of the things he's done. And you see my previous videos. But with regards to this, there is a need because there's a nefariousness to the economic relationship with China right now.
$1 trillion. Our deficit is much better. When I started, I say we were losing billions of dollars a day on trade. That's rapidly turning around. We looked at numbers this morning. So we were losing, the United States during Biden was losing more than, I won't even give you numbers because they're so embarrassing, but billions of dollars a day on trade. Those numbers are rapidly turning between the tariffs. Don't forget, we're now getting 25% on cars, 25% on aluminum, 25% on steel, and maybe more importantly, massive numbers of companies are moving into the United States. Honda, we have tremendous, the car companies are moving in at levels we've never seen before. The biggest investment ever made in the United States is being made right now. Trillions of dollars. I would say we could be at $9 trillion. You could go back to other presidents. They haven't had $1 trillion for their entire term. Look at Biden. He had bad numbers. People were leaving. They weren't coming in. They were leaving with Biden, and he didn't know the difference. The only thing he knew is people coming in. You know who they were? Illegal immigrants, okay, from prisons, from mental institutions, from all sorts of places that weren't good, from gangs, from Venezuela. They were coming in and they were criminals and murderers, 11,888 people that murdered, and at least half of them murdered more than one person. This is what Biden led into our country. I'm bringing in big companies. We have Apple is investing $500 billion.
So the Apple thing is true. So if you're in the Houston area, they're about to make a big infrastructure, AI investment, things like that. So if you're looking to work for Apple and get those benefits and that paycheck, and you're in the Houston area or Texas, it's the place to be. All right, it's the place to be. I know a lot of people that I used to live in the Houston area too. So definitely a lot going on there. By the way, sorry. My what you just saw was my dog just wanting some attention, so that's why I muted the mic. Figured he didn't want to hear that. But yeah, and so yeah, he's just going to rip on Biden. He's going to continue to rip on Biden. I mean, he absolutely. I don't know if he hates the guy, but I think he hates the guy. I think he really does hate the guy. I mean, yeah, his policies were not that great, but I mean, this is just a. But again, that's Trump, right? That's Trump. That's the thing about when you watch him. He's going to continue to rip on him. Gets into Gavin Newsom later. This ought to be good.
We have Jensen, as you know, is going to be 500 biggest chip maker, or chip thinker, I call him. He's really a thinker more than a maker. But we also have the maker, Mr. Wei. I get to know them all in the last, it was a cram course, but they're all moving into America because of the tariffs. And I don't think people have appreciated it. Some people do. Some of the smart people do. So we have more money coming in. It's really an amazing thing. We have
not good
more money being invested in the United States now than at any time ever before in our history, and it's not even close. And I think the real number could be 9 or 10 trillion. We don't know everybody that's doing it. We have many. I just heard about a plant that's being built right now, a very, very top of the line company. And they didn't come to the White House. They're just doing it because they're making it, because if they build here, there are no tariffs. And this is the big market. This is the market. That sets us apart from it. This is the market where everyone wants to be.
He's not wrong,
now,
folks.
If I didn't come here and do this,
it's not wrong about that being the big market.
Where everyone wants to be. So we're able to do it in time. But we're going to have a great announcement. And I'm not necessarily saying it's on trade. Going to the beginning, we're going to have a great announcement over the next few days. An announcement that will be so incredible.
Can't wait.
Positive. And I'm not saying I
Can't
don't
wait.
want you to think it's necessarily on trade. Just to finish, we also have.
So it's not on trade, or it is on trade.
When are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We could sign 25 deals right now, Howard, if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us.
Rubio
They
looks so
want a piece
tense.
of our
He's
market.
just under the.
We don't want a
That
piece of
poor
their market.
bastard.
We don't care about their market. They want a piece of our market.
Listen, Marco Rubio is also the interim national security advisor, along with being the Secretary of State. So this guy, he looks tense. Look at Vance, relaxed, cool, no problem. Rubio just looks like he doesn't even know how to relax at this point in time. But if you didn't know, Mike Waltz, the national security advisor for President Trump, He did resign. It wasn't because that he got in trouble with the whole Signal chat and WhatsApp and leaking information. He's being nominated for the new UN ambassador post. So to be the next UN ambassador for the United States. So Marco Rubio is now the National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. A job, either or job, is a head breaker. The fact that he's doing both is why he looks like that. All right. I mean, good luck, Marco.
So we can just sit down, and I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks, and I'll sit with Howard and Scott and with our great vice president, who has done a really good job. We have some good news to report on a lot of fronts, but JD will be there, and Marco, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to put very fair numbers down, and we're going to say, here's what this country, what we want, and congratulations, we have a deal. And they'll either say, great, and they'll start shopping, or they'll say, not good, we're not going to do it. And I said, that's okay, you don't have to shop. Now, we may think, well, they have a right, that maybe we were a little bit wrong.
You don't like it? Don't come here.
And then you people will say, oh, it's so chaotic. No, we're flexible. But we'll sit down, and we'll, at some point, in some cases, we'll sign some deals. It's much less important than what I'm talking about. For the most part, we're just going to put down a number and say, this is what you're going to pay to shop. And it's going to be a very fair number. It'll be a low number. We're not looking to hurt countries. We want to help countries. We want to be friendly with countries. But you keep writing about deals. When are we going to sign? When? It's very simple. We're going to say...
He's getting ramped up now.
In some cases, we want you to open up your country. In some cases, we want you to drop the tariffs. I mean, India, for example, is one of the highest tariffs in the world. We're not going to put up with that. And they've agreed already to drop it. They'll drop it to nothing. They've already agreed. They would have never done that.
He did have great relationship with India. That made that deal easy. So he did build a great relationship with India the first term.
The country is open for business, and they're going to come in, and they're going to pay for the privilege of being able to shop in the United States of America. It's very simple. It's very simple. So I wish they'd stop asking, how many deals are you signing this week? Because one day we'll come and we'll give you 100 deals. And they don't have to sign. All they have to do is say, oh, we'll start sending our ships right now to pick up whatever we want or to bring whatever we want. It's very, very simple. And I think my people haven't made it clear. We will sign some deals. But much bigger than that is we're going to put down the price that people are going to have to pay to shop in the United States. Think of us as a super luxury store.
By the way, if that sounds harsh, then you haven't lived in another country. And again, I spoke about this the other day on another stream. Just electronics, if you come to Mexico, you're going to pay about 30% to 40%, if not 50% more for an electronics that you would buy in the United States, right? So again, I was pricing new computers for my family. And so I was looking at the base MacBook Air, which costs $1,000 in the United States. Here, because of the tariffs and the tax, the VAT tax, the regulation, all that crap, right? Because of that, here you're paying $300 more just on the base model, and things increase as you go up. I was looking at a MacBook Pro, and I was like, oh, this beautiful MacBook Pro, and I've got a little bit of an older MacBook Pro, but it still works, so I like it. I'm not going to replace it right now. But I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll replace it. I would be paying almost $1,000 more here than I would in the United States for the same device. I was looking at PlayStation 5s because they were starting to drop the price on PS5s. You're still paying $200 to $300 more for a PlayStation 5. And again, I was looking at the maybe pre-ordering the Wii, right? The new Wii, not the Wii, the Kinect or whatever you call it, right? The Nintendo thing, right? Because my kids like Nintendo. So I was looking at that, and I'm like, oh, in the United States, it's $450 for the pre-order. Here, it would have been more like $800. I mean, it's crazy, absolutely crazy when you think about what some of these countries are doing, charging companies to get their stuff in from around the world. It really is. It really is. It's a lot. They have different rules on different things too as well, like protectionist policies. So like here in Mexico, they're really known for having great textiles, blankets and pillows and things like that. Really comfortable, really nice, but you can't mail them. You know that? If you buy a blanket here in Mexico with certain textiles, you go to the post office to mail it. Like, say you want to ship it as a gift to your family back home in the United States. They say, no, you can't. It's illegal. because they don't want you to be able to export that stuff without having to pay, without having to go through a certain process and pay a legal fee and it really is a lot to it. So quite interesting. So what he's talking about with other countries and some of the barriers that they have up for trade, those are very real things. And until you live it and experience it, you don't really understand how I mean, I can imagine. I mean, Apple is a luxury. No one, you go to an Apple store here, there's 2 in Mexico City. They're never filled with people like Apple stores in the United States because it's such a high-end luxury brand, right? No one buys Apple product in Mexico, right? They buy Apple product that was purchased in the United States and they're paying it off the black market. That's what happens.
A store that has the goods. You're going to come and you're going to pay a price, and we're going to give you a very good price. We're going to make very good deals, and in some cases we'll adjust.
Make some good deals.
But that's where it is, and we've been ripped off by everybody for 50 years. For 50 years, and we're just not going to do that anymore. We can't do that, and we can't let any country do that to us. We're just not going to do it anymore.
Look at JD, he's so relaxed. It's like he's drinking a beer.
On the Houthis, can you tell us a bit more about the deal that you've reached with the Houthis that you mentioned?
No, it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bomb us anymore. We're not going to attack your ships.
Stop hurting us.
It doesn't matter where I hear it. The very good source, I could tell you. Very, very good.
Most likely he heard it from Saudi Arabia.
Pretty good, right, JD?
That's probably where he heard it from, is Saudi Arabia.
They don't want to be bombed anymore, you know. Sort of thought that.
Bombed 800 times. We've hit 800 targets. There's nothing left.
Something you said on USMCA. Is the U.S. prepared to walk away from that pact?
For what pact?
USMCA.
No. It's fine. It's there. It's good. We use it for certain things. It's there. We have the USMCA is a good deal for everybody. I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked for. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person. And she really hurt that deal very badly because she tried to take advantage of the deal and she didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about.
I think it's the finance minister and the Trudeau's he's talking about, but he's also talking about Trudeau. Did not like Trudeau at all.
Relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal, and we ended it. You know, we ended that relationship pretty much. The USMCA is great for all countries. It's good for all countries. We do have a negotiation coming up over the next year or so to adjust it or terminate it.
Mr. President, I'll say a word on USMCA if I may, Mr. President. It is a basis for a broader negotiation. Some things about it are going to have to change. And part of the way you've conducted these tariffs has taken advantage of existing aspects of USMCA. So it's going to have to change. There's other elements that are come, and that's part of what we're going to discuss.
Right.
Sounds like a reasonable guy, so.
During the campaign, Prime Minister Carney talked about the American betrayal. How do you react if Canada decided not to shop in the American store as much as before and decided to partner with other countries?
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with
I don't
us.
feel tardy.
We're at like 4%. And usually those things don't last very long. You know, we have great things, great product. The kind of product we sell, nobody else can sell.
Trump whoppers. I don't feel
military.
tardy.
We make the best military equipment.
Great.
In
I
the
love that
world.
comment. Thank
Canada
you.
buys our military equipment, which we appreciate. But we make the best military equipment in the world by far. The missiles, the
We make some pretty good weapons. I mean, we are good at making
everything
weapons.
we
He
have
is right about that. I mean, this is one thing we've been good
We
at
built our military
for a long,
on,
long time. It's that military-industrial
we gave some
complex.
away to Afghanistan, which shouldn't have happened. But that was, I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. It was just a very incompetent people. But if you
It was pretty bad.
And
But
it's now the head of our Joint Chiefs. He led the attack on ISIS for me. That's why he's the head of the Joint Chiefs. And Raising Cane, he was unbelievable. And as you know, we defeated ISIS in.
it's like he needs to go over his greatest hits to keep qualifying himself. I don't know if that's like a personal default in him or just sort of like a need or
agreed to a plan.
I don't know, but it seems like he always has to hit these greatest hits.
Record time. So we have the best equipment in the world. We have the best a lot of things. And but Canada it does a lot more business with us than we do with Canada. Yeah.
Mr. President,
kind of a dig.
Mr. President, when do you think the investments that you've announced, the trillions, will finally hit the economic data this year?
When you're saying about the tariffs?
No, about the investments that you've announced. You've announced.
Oh, it's hitting right now. Look, they're already starting AI plants. These are not people that look for financing. That's a good thing. You know, and
look, folks, the first quarter, and here's where I'll disagree with the president. The first quarter was a negative growth, right? So 2 quarters in a row of negative growth, and you're officially in a recession. We're going to have a second quarter of negative growth. It's just the way it is, just the way things are shaping up. So we are going to be, quote unquote, in a recession. Are they going to try and deny that word? No one's going to want to use that word on the right. On the left, they're going to use it all around. So that word's going to get thrown around like it normally does, like a political football. Now, will these investments that he's talking about sort of come to fruition in the third and fourth quarters of this year? We'll have to see. Economics moves glacially. Economics is not something that moves at the speed of light. It never has, never will. So I do disagree with him here where he's like, it's already hitting. It's not already hitting because it's not. It may be hitting some internal numbers somewhere that people don't get to see that don't affect the American public, but the American public is not feeling $10 trillion worth, as he said, or $9 trillion worth of investment. Again, that could change. Third quarter, fourth quarter, maybe first quarter next year, 2026, you start to see things because, I mean, when Biden took office, he took over the Trump economy, and he made some decisions that were hurtful to the U.S. dollar. And I know that because I was down here for his first year in office. And when I left the United States, the U.S. dollar was at an all-time high for value. So against the peso, $1 US was equal to 24, sometimes 25 pesos, which is one of the most amazing exchange rates you've ever had with the dollar and the peso between the United States and Mexico. After a year of Biden's economic policies, where he was trying to do other things that inherently hurt or weaken the dollar's value, what I saw is that dollar value go from one US was now equal to 16, sometimes 17 pesos. So you lost about 25% of that value. Did that happen overnight? No, it happened over the year. So economics is not something that happens in a very, very fast thing. We are on track for a depression. Yes and no. All right. I will disagree with a depression is some recession. Yes. Depression. That's a global collapse. That's a global collapse. I don't know if we're on track for a global collapse. We were close in 2008. I was there in 2008 watching everything disappear. Trade Trump whoppers. Thank you for the comment. I'm not there yet. 2008, we were so close. Money was going to stop coming out of ATMs at that point in time in 2008 with the Great Recession. The Great Depression, it's going to take something a little bit more than the tariffs and what's going on right now. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's something that can't happen. But depressions they are caused by a lot of different long-term damage and a lot of not just short-term damage. So do I see that what I think things that need to be concerned about is the different types of currency that's being created, like the BRIC currency to sort of replace. If the U.S. dollar is replaced as the main currency of the world, which is what the BRIC nations are trying to do, Brazil, China, and all that, they're trying to create a currency to basically circumvent or be the new U.S. dollar. If that happens, then yes, I could absolutely see, because the U.S. economy if the U.S. economy tanks because of that, yeah, it'll be a depression that'll take years and years and years to get out of. Absolutely. But if it's all about the value of that dollar. If the value of the dollar stays strong, and right now it's risen a little bit more. Again, I judge it by the basis of the exchange rates with other currencies. And now it's risen a little bit, not to the levels it was 4 or 5 years ago. But again, if that value of that dollar does tank and does get replaced, yeah, I would agree that would be a depression. Yeah. Once the U.S. economy is circumvented or is nullified, yeah, then you're going to have something like that. And again, we almost had that in 2008. The U.S. economy was almost it almost collapsed. It did collapse. If it wasn't for the infusion of $2 trillion of U.S. government money or tax money, printed money, made up money, if it wasn't for the infusion of that money, it would have all fallen to shit. It would have absolutely fallen to shit. It was amazing. It was it was the scariest economic time I've ever lived through. And I've lived through from Carter to Reagan all the way up. So I hopefully never will see that again. And I'm always nervous when I start seeing things like, that remind me of that time. But yeah, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
In real estate, you get a site, then you have to look for financing, you have to get your zoning, 5 years later you start building, you get a bank, then the bank's no good. Yeah, these people have massive amounts of cash. The CHIPS Act was a ridiculous thing because that doesn't get them to build. All we did is hand very wealthy companies money. The CHIPS Act that was done by Biden. Billions, we give them billions of dollars. They don't even have to do anything with it. And then if you weren't...
I wouldn't say that. That's a little over-exaggeration right there.
I don't want to be a wise guy, but if you didn't go with the DEI, if you didn't go with all of the different things woke, if you weren't woke, you couldn't even use the money. You had to have a certain percentage of this and that and that and that. It's impossible to have. The companies actually complained to me. They said they gave me all this money, but nobody can get.
Okay, I've never been a fan of woke and DEI. Okay, everybody knows that, right? I know that it's been perverted and used for different things than what it was originally used for. DEI, when it began, was something that was sort of it had its pure intentions and goals. Okay, and then it became something else. It became its own industry, and once that happens, it becomes something different, okay? But regardless, here's where I'll push back. The most woke DEI-based company in the world happens to be the one that's worth the most amount of money. It happens to be Apple. Now, is that because of its product? Probably, all right? Is it just conjecture and sort of coincidence that it is, all right? I know this because I work there, all right? So the most woke DEI company that exists in the world is Apple, and it's worth the most amount of money than any other company in the world. So again, you can push back on what he's saying right now. He just has a lot of vitriol towards that type of stuff and just doesn't like it. I get it. Because I think he sees only the dark side of DEI, which we've talked about before. There's always a good and a bad side of each one. And again, when you have money or when you have a whole industry created around something that's more of a message or a social or a value, things get perverted. And that's what would happen. I think, but at its core, when you start to think like, hey, how can we be more inclusive? Like, that's not a bad thing. It never has been. But when you start trying to manipulate that in a way which is not authentic or not natural or not, I don't know, based in sort of like a real sort of genuine positive intent, then that's where you start to have problems, right? Then inclusion becomes exclusion of others, right? And so I think that's where he gets hung up, and he doesn't see the good side versus the bad side. I think he just sees the bad and kind of paints it all with one. What happened in 2020? Well, we did have that. We did have a pandemic, right? But I know when I was, like I said, when I landed here in Mexico in 2021, I was getting 24 pesos per dollar. Absolutely getting 24 pesos per dollar. And now, and then again, 3 or 4 years later into that, I was going, hey, make sure, because I actually have an app on my phone that tracks the current exchange rate in real time. And every time I went to go take out money from an ATM, by the way, if you ever do take out money from an ATM, always decline the conversion rate because they're giving you a worse conversion rate. Neither here nor there. So I was watching it in real time, just sink and sink and sink. And finally, it's starting to get better and better and better. Again, a lot of things go into economic policies. Mexico was doing a lot of things with their central banking where they were sort of solidifying it there at the time as well, fighting against the dollar because they saw some opportunity, and they still see some opportunity. The Mexican economy was growing, roaring for the last 4 years. It's slowed down just slightly right now with what's going on with some of the import, export, and the tariffs and things like that. But it was roaring, so that also had an effect on it as well because the peso was just getting stronger too. But let's get back to this guy.
Get these people to do anything. I mean, look, President Obama, and if
oh boy,
help, I'd give
we're going to
him
Obama.
I'm a really good builder, and I build on time.
Here we go.
He's building his library in Chicago.
Okay.
It's a disaster.
What do you mean?
He said something to the effect, I only want DEI, I only want woke. He wants woke people to build it. Well, he got woke people.
What does that mean?
Massive cost overruns, a job is stopped.
I've not heard that, but okay.
I don't know. It's a disaster. And I don't like that happening because I think it's bad for the presidency that a thing like that should happen. He's got a library that's a disaster. And he wanted to be very politically correct.
I'll have to look that up. I'll have to look that up, the Obama Presidential Library.
Construction workers that I love, Marco. I love those construction workers.
You do construction.
But he didn't want construction workers.
You do construction in any major city, especially northern cities, Chicago, New York, Boston, and I know because I've done it. You're going to have cost overruns because of a lot of different things. I don't know. What does that mean? I only want woke workers. What does a woke construction worker look like? What is that? I don't know. I've not heard that. I've not seen it. I've not seen any articles, but I'll have to do some research on that one.
She wanted people that like never did it before, and she's got a disaster in his hands, like millions of dollars, many.
Yeah, he does seem like it's non-merit based, but that's the thing. When it's forced, right? When it's manipulated, instead of just looking for the purity of inclusion and saying, "Hey, we want." I'll give you an example. And this is from Apple, and this is the thing that I disagreed and I pushed back on the company for, and I did a video on this. So a directive came down and said, "Hey, from now on, all promotions have to meet certain standards of diversity, equity, and inclusion." We kind of didn't know what that meant. And then we were told in sort of private conversations, not public, that they were looking for people with alternative lifestyles to be promoted. They were looking for people of Latino descent to be promoted. They were looking for other people of color. So we didn't know this at the time. So we had one position open and only one person applied for it, and they were trained for it and they were good for it. And everybody agreed that this person would be great for it. I got a phone call saying, "You cannot hire this person." And I asked, "Well, why?" Because of the color. Because literally the exact quote was, and this is the exact quote, "We cannot hire another blonde, blue-eyed woman." I said, okay. So kind of didn't know really what to do with that. And again, that's a real quote from a real conversation I had with higher ups. And so then what happened is sooner or later, we stopped thinking about merit. We didn't think about merit. The conversation was, we have an open position and they say, this person's applying. And the first thing that, believe me, I know what it means because I had to teach it. So the conversation would be between managers was, oh, this person is that color and this person is that lifestyle. They're perfect for the role. It wasn't, we never talked about whether they could do the role or not. That's what the conversations become. And that's when DEI becomes dark. That's when DEI becomes something that you shouldn't do. That's when you think, no, what you should do is make sure everybody who wants to know about the position, everybody who's there, everybody who's in your group, everybody who's on your team has the same information, the same opportunity, the same training, the same encouragement, the same mentorship, the same everything. You make sure everybody has the same foundation to succeed. Then it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do. Right? That's the thing. If you work top down, it doesn't work that way. If you work bottom up and make sure everybody has the same, attention, then you can make sure everybody feels, because then it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But back to Trump.
I mean, really many millions of dollars over budget. And I would love to help him with it, or somebody else. I could recommend professionals. But it was not built in a professional manner. By the way, nor was in California a little train going from San Francisco to Los Angeles that's being run by Gavin Newsom, the governor
of California. There we go. I knew he'd come up. Why? Because he's going to run for president.
The worst cost overrun I've ever seen.
He's going to run against J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio.
Totally out of control. So then they said, all right, we won't go into San Francisco. We'll stop 25 miles short. And we won't go into Los Angeles. We'll stop 25 miles short. It's hundreds of billions of dollars for this stupid project that should have never been built. And then they realized that it would have been a lot less costly if we just gave limousine service back and forth and gave it free. They would have saved hundreds of billions of dollars. They have airplanes that go there for one 1/100th the cost, and they have cars.
Do I think they all get there by merit? Absolutely not. But that's politics. That's politics, and that's grift, and it always has been grift, right? Did I tell my higher ups? It was the higher ups that were telling me what they were telling me, and so I basically toed the party line. I toed the line with them. And I was like, okay, well, that's where the company wants to go, and that's what the company wants to do. It's their company. It's not my. It didn't say Gringo's company on the outside. Therefore, I was like, okay, well, that is the value. That is the system which they want to put into place. My job is either honor that system or find somewhere else to work. Right. So that's what I did. I honored the system for a little bit, and I said, okay, well, then it came time for me to say, I've been doing corporate work for 20 years. I'm going to be out of here now. But again, if you start with the foundation of everybody, I never cared where my workers came from or who they were. I never cared, ever cared. The only thing I ever cared about is that they all get the same opportunity and the same everything, same encouragement, same. So if you tell, here's where DEI works, right? What would happen is a long time ago, a position would open and the manager would know the position was open, or higher up or a leader would know, and they'd go to the person that they would think is the one that they want in that position. They say, hey, this position is open. You should apply for it. Well, you got to get rid of that, because then that's exclusion. What you need to do is make sure that the position is announced and the position is out there. Everybody knows. You've talked to everybody and said, is this something you want to do? Is this something you're interested in? How can I help you get there? Right. So there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. And the way not to do it is sometimes the easier way. Right. And sometimes that's what we do as humans. We take the easy way out. Right. Diversity, equity, inclusion is hard work. It's not easy. To be diverse, to be inclusive is hard work in a society that's not used to doing it. So you need to do it the hard way to be able to make it easy later on. That's the way I kind of looked at it. Who is in by merit? Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. Absolutely. A medic in the field, someone who basically stood up to her own party, someone who served. Yeah, she's there by merit. Absolutely. I feel. No, I'm not admitting to systemic. I'm admitting to following the rules in which I was told, or get another job. And eventually I just went and got another job. So that's what I did. But that's what happened. That's it. I mean, that's the truth. But that's what DEI is. That's how it worked. So if I'm told, hey, I can't hire somebody because of who they are and how they look, that's not me participating in anything. That's me being told, no, I can't do it. Doesn't mean I was like, yeah, great, no problem. I can't hire somebody if I'm told I can't hire them. So there's no participating, but I appreciate your input. So, but yes, that's what it is. That's DEI.
They have a thing called the highway that goes back and forth. It's not fully utilized. And they got involved with this project. And Gavin, I always liked Gavin. I had a good relationship with him. I just got him a lot of water. I sent in people to open up that water because he refused to.
And by the way, so it's not something that's typical of Apple. So the U.S. State Department, I was watching a hearing about 6 months ago. The U.S. State Department had to account for why they had human resource memos that were sent out to their recruiters and their people that hired them. Yeah, it does, because she knows her stuff. She's a military person who served, who was on intelligence committees within Congress, had the necessary clearance, was able to understand the information, and has an opinion about it that, hey, the person, I want the director of national intelligence to be the person that says the last thing we should do is go to war. All right. That's the person I want in charge, being able to interpret that. All right. I don't want, the people that were in charge in this first term that were all ready to want to go to war in Iran and things like that. So yes, I want someone who's going to look at the world and say, the last resort should be war. The last resort should be funding war. The last resort. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That qualifies her. Qualifies her way more than anyone else that I know. But that's a qualification. But
to do it, and we just got them a lot of water. If they would have had that water, and if they would have done what I said to do, they wouldn't have had the fires in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, the fires. He's talking about the fires again.
But if you think about it, and you got to take a look at this, it's the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. I've watched a lot of stupid people build a lot of stupid things, but that's the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. What's happening between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and you ought to ask about that, because this government is not going to pay. I told our very great new Secretary of Transportation, he's doing a good job, Sean Duffy, I said, we're not going to pay for that thing. They are just, it's out of control. This is something that you don't have things like this. It's not even conceivable. Like 30 times over budget.
The Prime Minister of Canada is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know where this meeting is going.
And I think the media should take a look at it. And I'd love him to run for president.
It looks like the Prime Minister of Canada is just ready to get up and leave. That's really what it looks like. It looks like he's just ready to get up and leave.
One project alone, well, that and the fires and a lot of other things pretty much put him out of.
The problem with the agency and the agency in general, and whether it's the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, whatnot, is their institutional memory, institutional bias, and institutional protection. All right, so that is something that has been totally documented, and there's been laws now passed to sort of try to really kind of restrict that kind of behavior. So when you've got someone who's a career sort of operative within that business, they operate within the walls. You want somebody outside. For me, I want somebody from outside who's not influenced by the absolute process or the indoctrination of the institution in which they are a part of. So I think that's what qualifies her. Absolutely. I think you do need somebody on the outside, because if you're DNI, if you're the Director of National Intelligence, you don't want to be just subservient to the CIA. You don't want to be subservient just to the intelligence of the FBI or NSA. You want to be able to disseminate. You want to be able to facilitate. And you want to be able to connect those dots without having a bias on either side. And I think that's what qualifies her more than somebody on the inside. Now, does somebody on the inside deserve to be director of the CIA? Sure, absolutely.
We're going to work on some subtle changes, maybe. I don't even know if we're going to be dealing with USMCA. We're dealing more with concepts right now. Look, right now, we're doing trade. We have trade. They're paying a tariff on cars. And
he really doesn't have an answer for what they're asking. I don't think he wants to answer. I don't think he cares to answer.
For the tariffs, but we're getting.
I don't think he really thinks that they're smart enough as a press pool to really understand if he gave an answer. And again, I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that I think that's how he looks at the press. Is that I'm sure there are some answers that he could give them. And he just doesn't have the. I don't know. He doesn't have the relationship with the press to want to give them those answers.
USMCA parts are included, and then 15% of foreign parts from the manufactured suggested retail price.
I don't think Tulsi Gabbard qualifies as a cocktail waitress, buddy. I just don't think so. To call her a cocktail waitress is someone who's been in battle. Cocktail waitresses don't go to battle. They're not field medics in battle. So I would say that's sort of a wrong analogy for you to put down. I'm sure you could make a better one, but to insult her by calling her a cocktail waitress, I'm sure there's better analogies you can come up with.
Are not tariffed to help domestic manufacturing really thrive.
So it gave them a chance to be able to build their car parts factories if they're going to. A lot of these companies already have factories, and what they have to do is just fill them out. But they're able to build them in the United States, so we gave them a pretty substantial period of time.
Just to clarify, Mr. President, is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Oh, I'm not making excuses for him. I literally don't think he respects the press enough to give them answers. There's no mental gymnastics about it. It's just I don't think he really respects them enough to really sit there and give them a detailed answer, or to give them an answer that he cares to be straightforward to them.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. Respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly,
Get back to the 51st state
of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are in the United States. We have a
that is true.
Auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else.
Yes, it is. But what I'm saying is he doesn't respect the press, and in that turn, he doesn't respect that institution of the press to do that. I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's definitely one of his flaws. I think he could be way better at communicating this stuff.
It won't make
But he
economic
just doesn't
sense for
respect him
Canada
enough
to build those
because he
cars.
doesn't want the
And we
conversation.
don't
He
want
wants
steel from Canada 'cause we're
he
making
wants
our
to be
own
able to
steel.
say
We're
he's the
having
type of person who just wants to
massive
say
steel
what he wants to
plants being
say
built right now as we
and
speak.
have you accept it.
We really don't
That's
want
him. Like
Canadian
it, don't
steel,
like
and
it.
we
That's
don't
just
want
him.
Canadian
All right.
aluminum and various other things
Nixon was
because
the
we
same
wanna
way,
be
and that's a
able to do
horrible
it
analogy
ourselves.
because Nixon was a horrible president, right?
Because of, you know, past
But he was the same
thinking
way.
people,
He's
we
not
have
Reagan.
tremendous
This is not
deficit.
Reagan would sit and talk to the press all day long about everything you
They
want
have
to talk
surplus
about,
with us.
like whether you agreed with his
And there's
policies
no
or not,
reason
right?
for us to be subsidizing Canada.
But Trump does not want to. He does not care. He does not like it. He does not, because he cannot control the response back. That's why he doesn't do it.
Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking your, we want to make them ourselves. I mean, I said, and if...
Is it a good quality leader? No, it's not a good quality leader. He's not a perfect leader. He's not by any means. I mean, his communication with the press and his messaging is terrible. It really is terrible. He even said that himself today. He's like, my messaging is not good. My people aren't getting my message out right. And it starts with him, right? We go back to someone like Obama or Clinton. They were policy. They could sit there and talk about policy, the ins and outs, and they could give you answers on every little thing, which is why their press conferences lasted for so long sometimes. But at least you knew exactly, sort of like with Obama especially, right? And again, I'm not an Obama apologist and I'm not an Obama supporter. I just, I know I lived through 8 years of him, but I know that when he got up to the podium and he spoke, he was going to answer the question that was delivered, unless he couldn't based on a real national security issue, right? But he was going to answer that. He had a sort of a relationship with the press that was more, I don't know, he respected the role of the press. He respected that role, right? And I don't think President Trump sees that in the same way. Actually, I know that he doesn't see that in the same way. You can see that with the way how he acts. But that's his leadership style, and that's what we got for the next 4 years.
The price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but
the Prime Minister of Canada is holding his breath at that. You could just see that. It's like he wants to say something, but he's too cordial of a leader right now. Yep, he wants to. He wants to.
And we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But
you can see it.
It's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion?
I bet Trump doesn't even let him talk. I bet Trump doesn't even let him talk.
And it's hard for the American taxpayer to say, gee whiz, we love doing that. Thank you very much. We're gonna have a very
Look, he cut it. He cut him. He could tell. He could tell the Prime Minister of Canada really wanted to say something there. You could tell. He really wanted to say something there. And he cut it. He said, thank you very much. I'll see you later. You could absolutely tell Trump knew that something was coming. He avoided that conflict. He should, I don't know. It's the Oval Office. I get it. It's his room, but it's his guest too. So, damn. All right. Well, I'm just glad it didn't turn into a Zelensky issue like the last time we had a leader in the Oval Office. Okay. It looks like Canada has voted themselves in somebody who is reasonable. It looks like they voted somebody in who is measured. Measured is good. Measured is really good. It looks like they voted somebody in who is willing to take the world as it's given to him and not as he wants it, and sort of work with that. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because Canada does have a lot of issues, right? Canada does have issues with indigenous populations. They do have economic issues. They have environmental issues, just like any other country, right? But again, it looks like, I think it's the first time I've actually seen him outside of the political campaign, because I did pay attention to some of the campaigning in Canada. And this is his role as being prime minister. And I think there's a switch that flips there. Listen, trade deficits are trade deficits are a buzzword. That's what they are. And that's how he uses those things as buzzwords, right? Trade deficits are buzzwords because there's a lot more. You may have a trade deficit with another country, but you have something else coming in. Let's say you've got, we've got a trade deficit with, say, Vietnam. But what you don't hear about is an issue that is talked about in the United Nations called brain drain, right? So brain drain is where all the really smart students from Vietnam come to the United States and work here, and then they support our economy. But you can't measure that in dollars, right? So yes, we may have a physical trade deficit in terms of product, but you can't measure the other intangibles that we actually take from those other countries because they want to come here and live here. So I think this trade deficits is just it's a buzzword, and you have to be real careful with how you use that and throw that around. But then again, with trade deficit, when you say something like China, because there's a lot of intellectual theft going on, with intellectual property, I think that's where you can actually kind of pay more attention to that kind of thing. So, but yeah, but that's Trump. I was more interested in seeing the Prime Minister of Canada, and do I think it's poor policy? I think there is. Okay, so I talked about this yesterday. There is proactive and then there's reactive policy. And I think there's a lot of reactive policy going on right now. Proactive. So we talked about Hollywood, right? So yesterday he comes up and he's like, hey, we're going to institute 100% tariffs on Hollywood films that are made overseas. Why? There's no trade deficit with Hollywood. Hollywood is a net positive revenue gainer for the United States, even with making movies overboard. But he uses it it's a buzzword for him. It's a buzzword for everybody else, right? Because he's not going to sit there because it makes it sound, it's divisive, right? It's what he does. He makes things divisive. He turns things into he turns into like us against them against us, right? And that's what I mean by buzzword, right? He's not going to sit there and explain to you the ins and outs of trade deficits and things like that. He's just going to use it as a tool for divisiveness to show, okay, I'm going to get people on my side and use it as an emotional, reactive speech, right? And that's what he does. That's how he governs, right? If you listen to any of his speeches, very few times does he get into the ins and outs of policy, all right? He talks in ways that turns issues into divisive issues and makes you feel one way or another emotionally about them. And that's how he governs. That's how he communicates. All right. So yeah. He's not, and to him, it's justification, right? To him, it's his own justification, right? If he can say, hey, it's us against them, then he's got a justification for it. All right. Again, here's the thing. I think what you're also doing right now is you have to take this from somebody who studied politics for 50 years. All right. You're looking at him and you want to try to fit him into a certain mold of, you're trying to judge him against a certain mold of what regular politicians do. He's not a politician. He's not a regular politician. He's demagoguery, that kind of thing, right? That's what he does. That's how he does it. And so to try to fit him or try to understand him in a traditional political sense, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen. It doesn't make sense. But then again, none of it makes sense. The tariffs to me don't make sense. Tariffs to me, some of the reciprocal tariffs make sense, okay? But some of the really gross, like it's almost punishing tariffs, they don't make sense. Or to me, they don't. I don't really agree with some of those. And again, going back to like the one that he announced yesterday, the 100% tariff on Hollywood films. Well, why not be proactive and create the environment where there's tax incentives like they are in London? Why not create the environment where there's tax incentives like there are in Australia, or reduce fees or things like that? Make it more viable. If you make the business environment more viable in the United States, then you'll attract that business back as opposed to trying to hurt them. Yeah. Is he a Manchurian candidate? I don't know about, that's one of those things where it's like, I don't think half the time you and I can't understand what he's saying. So, or kind of wrap our heads around it. I doubt anybody else is inside that head, right? It's sort of like, does he have weird relationships with people that I wish he wouldn't have, like, other leaders out there? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. But that's, again, the world that we live in. There he is. But all right. Now, with that, all right, I'm not going to get into Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is getting blasted for something she said 8 years ago. Listen, I'm not into cancel culture, and I'm not into going back. If you said something 8 years ago and it's taken out of context, that's just a load of shit. So granted, yes, I know she's hated for being a part of the progressive left or the squad. I think, do they still call her the squad or call them the squad? She said something 8 years ago about a report that came out, and she's getting crap about it now. It's 8 years ago. Let it go. All right. Let's see. Here's, all right. This is the weirdest story. All right, I'm going to switch a little bit from politics to crime culture. But thank you for the discussion. I appreciate it very much on that. But I'm going to move away from Trump right now. Let me see here. We were talking about tariffs. Speaking of tariffs, if I had to look this up, let me get my glasses, by the way, before I move away from tariffs. So here are the tariffs, and here are the things I'm kind of like wondering, like, what are we doing? All right, China, 145% tariffs start at $120 or flat $100 fee on packages worth $800 less. To be honest with you, do you know who that hurts? That hurts all these small businesses that are out there that are, selling things, just like the little online eBay stores and things like that. That's that hurts. I can't imagine these small businesses are just these side hustles, make a little extra cash on the side, buy some clothes for your kids. I can't imagine that that's helpful. I got to imagine that hurts. Large companies, again, Apple came out and they said they're going to lose $900 million because of the tariffs this year, because of China, the tariffs in China. $900 million to Apple is like me taking out $100 out of my wallet. Okay, it's or $50 out of my wallet. Canada, 25% non-energy, 10% energy and potash. That's got to go away. All right. Carney was right, right? The Prime Minister of Canada was right. The largest trading partner we have is Canada. Tariffs between the two have got to go away, or at least it's got to be minimized. We've got to stop that. That's going to be harmful. Mexico, the 25% tariff on Mexico, I can see because I live down here. It's pretty harsh what Mexico does to U.S. imports. It's really harsh what Mexico does to U.S. imports on all bases. I mean, across the board. It's they are protectionist tariffs too as well, because they have their own industries that they're trying to grow. But they are harsh. I can tell you that right now. A lot of people think it's cheaper to live in Mexico. It is with certain things, but it's not with a lot of other things. All right. And so reciprocal tariffs are on pause. Universal tariffs, 10%, except for those from Canada, Mexico, and China. So 10% on everybody else. That's not terrible, but the one with Canada, I think, needs to go away. The one with China, we've got to figure that out because, again, most of our stuff comes from China. No, it's not chump change. No. $1 billion, not $1 trillion, $1 billion. It's $1 billion, 900 million, not 900 billion, 900 million. No, it's not chump change, but it is to Apple because they've blown that, and believe me, believe me, I've seen them spend $1 billion like it was water. All right, I've been in those programs on things that are just like, why'd we spend $1 billion on that? They got lots of cash. But my point is, it's not the large companies that are getting hurt the most. It's the small businesses, the side hustles. That's the point I'm trying to make. That's what these Chinese tariffs are hurting people the most. The Etsy shops, the eBay stores, things like that. Those, the everyday people just trying to do a little side hustle on, trying to keep up a little web store or something like that. That's who it's hurting. Those are the people that can't afford tariffs like these. Okay. That's my point. I'm not saying anybody should be happy about giving away $900 million. What I'm saying is that those aren't the people we should be crying for. The people we should be crying for are the people who can't afford to give away $9. That's who we should be crying for. All right. All right, so I saw this as the most messed up story I've ever seen in my life. Really, it's one of the most messed up stories I've ever seen in my life. So I'm going to switch gears here. Apparently, the Department of Homeland Security is upset at the New York Times. Why are they upset at the New York Times? They're upset at the New York Times because the New York Times reported a story about a crime committed by an illegal alien, but they never said in the whole story that the person was an illegal alien. That's the big problem for the Department of Homeland Security. Listen, there's some words here I can't use because I don't want to get banned. So here's the story. Felix Rojas published this story was published on April 28th, 3 days before Immigration and Customs even said anything. So what did this guy do? So this guy was on the subway. Another guy was riding the subway, just some random stranger, and died. Whether he had a heart attack, a stroke, just it was his time. Guy was sitting there on his way to the Bronx or something, or wherever he was going, and he died. So he had a dead body riding the subway. So Felix Rojas decided this guy is dead, or he's unconscious, or he's something, so I'm going to rob him. So then after he robbed him, he said, well, he's still unconscious or he's dead, so I'm going to do something else to him, which I won't say, which you could probably see the word here in the headline. Here you go. That word. All right. And was arrested for this. Department of Homeland Security's problem is that he wasn't mentioned as an illegal alien. That's the big problem. And I'm just like, that's the concern? You have a person who does this to another man who died of natural causes on the subway, and your concern is that the newspaper has not listed him as an illegal alien. What the? Does that matter in this case? I mean, does that matter to anyone? Does anyone say to themselves right now, yeah, it matter. He should be listed as... This is a sick individual that no matter where he came from, where he's going, or what he's doing, should be taken off. The thing is, like, there are people like this walking around. The real story is that this is something that didn't get, like, how does this happen on a subway? Weren't there other people around? Were other people just kind of ignoring this? Being like, it's the New York. I've been on the New York subway. Believe me, I don't like to look around myself when I'm on the New York subway. Kind of look at your feet, kind of like, hey, keep your head down and be like. But at some point in time, you got to look up and be like, if you see somebody doing that to another person, you might want to call somebody. I guess I don't know. So this story just was like the weirdest thing. That what the government is focused on right now is the fact that we haven't labeled him as an illegal immigrant. Okay, he's an illegal alien. It doesn't make worse what he's done, right? The problem is apparently you can't ride the subway, whether you're dead or alive, without this happening to you. That should be the real story. If you're the Department of Homeland Security, the optimum word being security, the story or what you should be upset about is that this is occurring on New York subways. That's really what you should be concerned about. Not that who cares if it's an illegal alien or not. Can we not have them assaulting corpses on the New York subway? Is that something we can figure out? So that again, I read this and I'm just like, of all the things to be concerned about in the world, to be concerned of whether or not this guy is labeled as an illegal immigrant or not. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I do not know what to tell you on that one. But that's where the priority is. If the priority is labeling people as illegal immigrants and not actually stopping the crime or being worried about the crime, then I think we have to rethink what we're doing. So, always entertaining with President Trump. Always entertaining. Let me get back to my studio here. All right. Well, it's a baseball day, everybody. As you can see, got my Red Sox hat, my Red Sox shirt. I appreciate everybody. Trump Whoppers, you make a lot of good points, buddy. You really do. I appreciate you. And with that, I've run a little late, so I'm going to get on out of here. So I'm still your elected gringo. I'm still from south of the border, down here below the Rio Grande. If you really want to know what it's like to live in Mexico and what it's like to live here during the Trump era, I'm here for all your answers and questions. So with that, I am going to say salud, a huevo. I'll see you later on today. Everybody have a great day. Are
you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
So long, gay boys!